back to the Casting Cost CEDH podcast. I'm Blake.
I'm Chase, and today we're going to be talking about the things that really grind our gears in cEDH gameplay.
So, how do you want to go about this?
I don't really know. For me, I think when we were talking about things and trying to come up with things for today, in the games that I've been playing either here recently, we haven't done enough tournaments throughout the year, so I can't really say much on actual tournament play. But in some of our recent games, there are a lot of things that I've noticed at times, and I'm just like, it just sends me on edge. So I was like, let's talk about our pet peeves.
Yeah. Honestly, I think what would be fun, and again, we can go about this differently if you want to, because I know when you sent me the idea, you said top 3. But honestly, what I would like to do is we could probably just go back and forth, what's a pet peeve you have, what's a pet peeve I have, and then we could both give our opinions on that.
Yeah.
If that's something you want to
do.
do.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. So but I do feel like I'm the one that starts a lot, so I'm going to make you go first today.
Really?
No rock, paper, scissors.
No rock, paper, scissors.
No rock, paper, scissors.
So I've got to start. So one of my least favorite pet peeves, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me think here, because I didn't really get a ton of time to think on this. But I do have pet peeves. I don't know what I'm talking about.
It'll start flowing as soon as we get into it, though.
Yeah. No, dude. I think one of my biggest, I'd say one of my biggest pet peeves is, and I've said this before, but I feel like that, and I know that on camera and stream and stuff, I've said this before. I don't think that there is obviously a time where it's fine to feed value pieces at a table. I think that stuff is totally fine. The ones that get me are when you see people that do it, but for literally no reason. They will play something and then choose not to pay for a Ristic or an Esper or something like that. And then they literally follow it up with no other game action, and they have mana open and everything. I get it if you're needing to explode out right then, and you're going to use all your mana and everything's but it's going to really improve your chances of winning a game. I think that stuff makes total sense. Obviously do what you got to do. You know your deck better than everybody else does. But what kills me is when you see somebody just because they have it in their hand, they'll drop a 0 rock. And then you'll be like, are you going to pay for, it'll trigger an Esper Sentinel over here, an Heuristic over here, and they've got 5 mana, and it's do you really need that 0 rock? And they'll be like, nah, I'm not paying for anything. And then the people both draw, and then they go, pass. And you're like, what the fuck just happened? You didn't have, there's no way you need 6 mana for counter spells. You can't be bluffing that hard. Yeah. You don't even need 6 mana for a High Fae Trickster. What is in your hand? You know what I mean?
Well, what came to mind for me when you were talking about that, it's almost this difference between an intent behind something,
yes,
versus almost being naive to things. And I think that was one of my pet peeves too that I had, and not just with Ristics and Smothering Tides and Fish and things like that, but I think if I had to categorize it, it's lack of awareness of what's on the board. Because it's like you said, if you have an intent behind what you're doing, and you're trying to go a little bit into your game plan, and maybe even if you are holding on to interaction, or say you kept a hand that's okay, I can get from turn 1 to 4 if I just dump everything out, and you have an actual purpose and intent behind it, and then someone slams a fish right before you, it kind of does put you in a situation where it's do I want to feed into this, or do I want to wait? And sometimes you're kind of sitting at tables where you can't wait. So you do have to really assess and kind of go, okay, do I feed this player, or do I hold back? But then are my opponents going to hold back? Are they going to be in the position where they're going to start feeding the thing? Is this person going to pay for it? So you have to be really aware of what you're doing, not just for your own game plan, but you have to be aware of what's going on in front of you too. Because if you're not aware of what the other person is playing, or what's, again, those almost Staxy type pieces that are on board of, that are the advantage engines, if you're not aware of those pieces, you are just going to propel someone else. And you commented earlier on that too, saying there are times where you have to kind of take advantage of that. It might be the person that yeah, they have a Ristic and a Smothering Tithe out, but they don't have cards in hand, and you need to get them back in the game to actually deal with the person that is the threat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's one of those like skills you kind of have to learn to turn on and off.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like more oftentimes than not, we see what you were describing as far as carelessly kind of throwing things at it and allowing the other players to get a more significant advantage in the game whenever that didn't have to occur.
No, yeah, and I literally agree with that. I'm trying to detach myself from the outcomes of games, like not being so upset about like, okay, yeah, like that didn't go my way, like whatever. Because I normally don't really get upset about that. The ones that really get me though, or like I said, it's the ones where everything seems to start out like if you've played a few games and you've had a really good competitive back and forth and you've been playing with like a pretty good group and everybody's like making pretty strategic plays and it feels a lot like a tournament setting, but it's not necessarily a tournament setting, but it feels very like tournament-esque and you're like, okay, cool, like these are really good games. Like I feel like I'm getting better as a player here. And then all of a sudden you step into a pod and it's like nobody gives a fuck. Like everybody's just like, yeah, like a turn one fish comes down and you're trying to politic at the table. You're like, hey, I will literally, like, you have the resources in hand to where you're like, I could feed the hell out of this fish. But you're like, I won't feed this if you don't feed this. Like, if you guys are good with it, we'll choke them on mana, like, whatever, sure. Like, they're going to go land, whatever. But it's like, we'll all be on the same page. They'll just have to keep paying for the fish or they'll let it die. And sure, they'll eventually explode out.
Right.
But they probably were going to do that anyways if they didn't play the fish. So, like, I'm willing to not feed this thing if you're willing to not feed it. And then people just like do not listen. They're like, no, I'm going to feed it. I'm going to, and again, and there's no reason because it's like turn one, no one's ahead. It's just somebody played an early fish. And then I literally have started asking people, I'm like, if I let you right now, if I just said, hey, you can pick up 5 cards from the top of your deck, you can just pick up 5 cards. Would you do it? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, why would you do that? And they're like, well, because like they'd be really good. Like I'd be more likely to win. And I'm like, yeah. And that's what you're about to let them do. You're literally about to let them pick up 5 extra cards. They're going to start the game with 5 more cards. Like, do you understand how that's a problem? And sometimes people will still do it. And then I'm just sitting over there like, oh my God. Because those are the games where it doesn't feel like you lost. It feels like someone else literally like handed the win. Like king making, literally. It feels like someone handed the win to that person. And again, like I can understand. There was a game where I did feed some value pieces where I wanted people to have more cards in hand because like I was completely just kind of like screwed. I didn't really have much left in my hand and I had a windfall in hand. Yeah. And I was like, I would like to see some more cards. So I like threw a couple of mana things out and they were like, are you gonna pay? And I was like, no, feel free. And they just kept drawing and drawing and drawing. And I was like, cool, windfall. And I, instead of drawing like 5 cards, I think I got to draw like 8 cards or something like that. And I'm like, great. And then I pieced together a win with those 8 cards. I was like, perfect.
Yeah.
So like I may not have done that if I only saw 5 cards. So in those instances, I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Like I understand why you're doing that stuff. Or like you said, if this person over here is about to just go off and they're going to win, they're more than likely going to win the game. And you're like, look, I don't have any interaction for this guy. I'm just going to like feed the heck out of this guy and see if he can get something to address this. That's fine too. I feel like you're using your opponents to help you increase your odds of winning the game. Right. If that makes sense.
No, I think that makes sense because like I've gotten a lot of shit, I think, in our play group here recently for the deck that I chose to play, which has been Flubs.
Yeah.
And that is a deck that obviously like you have to go full into the Flubs game plan to do what you're going to do. Now, yes, it might feed someone. I kind of, whenever you're taking that concept though of that kind of style of deck, whether it's like Flubs or like a Storm deck, or you're just trying to put a bunch of pieces out there, like my mindset in that kind of starts shifting. And it's not so much like I don't give a shit that I'm feeding this person. I'm not, yeah, I know I'm king making, but at the same time, now I'm looking at my other opponents and I'm going, I just fed him. You all have to deal with it.
Yeah.
I can deal with some things. I can back you, like especially in my build of the deck, like I can help and interact and things like that. But it's like another way of being able to politic at the table, and I do like it for that reason. And I've actually here recently been paying for my taxes on shit with that deck.
Yeah.
So,
well, not only that, I've seen you piece together like instant speed wins too, because you did that the other day with Breach. Remember?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, "What is happening right now?" And then somebody went for a win, and you were like, just waiting until the last possible minute, and finally you were like, "Do you have anything?" And I was like, "Nope." And I just laid my cards down, and you were like, "Great." And then you started doing stuff, and I was like, "What is happening?" And then you ended up underroll breaching for the win, and I was like, "Well, I didn't see that shit coming." But,
Yeah, and like that, I mean that in particular is a deck where you just are very naive, you do what you want to, things like that. But it all kind of comes down to the mentality on things. Like what I just said, like I might intentionally, I'm turning through my deck and drawing a bunch of cards. I'm doing the flubs thing, but I'm intentionally throwing all the aggro onto another player that's taking more advantage than I am in the game off of what my things are doing.
yeah,
And it's so inconsequential to my board state that I'm forcing the other opponents to
yeah,
handle this threat. And when I need to, I can react, just
yeah,
like you were talking about, and be able to stop a win
yeah.
attempt, even whenever it doesn't feel like flubs can do anything.
Well, the
So,
thing too about your build for that deck, and I'm sure I've not looked at I've looked at some other builds, but I've not like compared them to yours.
yeah.
But like for you, that's a deck where it makes sense. Like, and the thing is too is like you're at least honest up front. Like if I say, "Are you going to feed a Ristic Study or a Mystic or whatever?" You'll look me in the face and be like, "I won't feed it if you don't feed it." And then you're true to your word.
Yeah.
You'll do stuff and you won't feed it. And then the next turn you'll be like, "I'm going to feed it." And then I mean you do, but you were open and honest about it. You were like,
Yeah.
"Hey." So you're like, if you want to feed it, cool, because I'm going to feed it, and you're true to your word about that. But you don't say, "No, I won't feed it," and then I go and I like be responsible, and you just go out there and spit everything out, and you're like,
Yeah.
fuck you, I lied."
Yeah, and that's probably a completely different pet peeve here in a second. But going back to like
Yeah.
that idea that when we're talking about feeding the things or not being aware of the board presence, and that includes like threat assessment,
Yeah.
too. Like that again, that's like another pet peeve of mine. That's huge for me. But
Yeah. We'll just pivot into all.
yeah, we'll pivot into all this. But like even I just said with that deck in particular, like the style of that deck and the way it plays, it's very naive and it's supposed to be. But I think the difference is between the intent of what the player is doing versus just the complete lack of whatever's going on in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely understand like not wanting to see, oh, here's a Rog Sai sitting at seat 1 and they were able to slam down a Ristic Study. We probably don't want to feed that person right away. Everyone's going to have to get to the point in the game where they have to interact and the player will get fed. But they're limited on what they can probably do.
Yeah.
You only have a certain amount of counter magic or removal or things like that. And it's all kind of luck based anyway when you're drawing that many cards. You increase your chances of winning when you're drawing a shit ton of cards, obviously. But in the first few turns, like it can be really crucial. You got to know when to feed things, but you can't just carelessly do it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Thinking. So yeah, like even though that's probably like a really like big thing currently going on in the format, and probably one of the biggest reasons as to why like people are looking at pieces like Ristic Study getting banned, not just for the fact that it can slow down games, but also because of that tendency of like if you aren't having people that are like constantly like being aware of that piece in particular, but the other ones that were mentioned, like it can kind of skew the game. And so like, I just mentioned a little bit ago, I think my biggest one that I have is just the, lack of threat assessment.
Go ahead.
I'll just say this, like I'll use me playing Sisay as an example because that deck it can go off, but there have been times where I've sat at a table and someone tries to politic to remove pieces from my board or remove the Sisay or things like that. I'm a mana short. Her power isn't high enough. They remove something on my board state whenever a Kennen player already has like a Hullbreaker Horror or a Tidespout Tyrant and like can go off going into their next turn. Like there's a lot of just lack of like this person is, even if they're doing things right now, they're not the person that's in the driver's seat of this match currently. And I've it's not just, that's definitely not just a local thing. Like I've seen it in tournament play too, where it's almost like, it's like not necessarily king making to just get like, they're not giving the advantage, I feel like, as far as the resources or extra pieces to the person that's actually like in the threat, whoever's actively the threat at the time. But like, again, it's kind of like that naiveness to it, or maybe someone might be afraid to speak up and say what's going on, and then they actually just kind of listen to the person that's actually the threat at the table, and then that person gets them to interact with a person that's like the second in line there, so that way it just continues to push. And you laugh about that because we've probably both seen it and or done it.
Yeah,
but
I was gonna say I'm king of that shit.
but like there are so many times whenever, like, I just use the intent versus naiveness. There's a perceived threat versus an actual threat at the table. And I think that there are a lot of times when the actual threat on board gets overlooked.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one thing too, I'm trying to think of how to say it. Like one of the reasons that I think, I don't even know how I'm trying to say this. I think that one of the issues that people have is like when they've seen a deck that is notoriously like really, really good, I feel like they immediately think like, okay, this deck is always in the driver's seat. I feel like the one deck, and I forgot who, it was whenever I was talking to Ian, he literally made a comment. He was like, the one deck that I just assume always has it is Blue Farm. He was like, other than that, I just, he was like, you have to kind of actually threat assess.
Yeah.
But he was like, but Blue Farm just always has it. He was like, just always the same. But like it's one of those things where I think that like they see that the deck is very popular or it does really, really well, and they just immediately look at that and they go, oh, this is a problem. And you can I feel like you can kind of get away with a little bit more when you're playing something that's a little more, I guess, like niche, or not like necessarily, I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say. Like, what am I trying to say here? Like when you're playing something that's not necessarily as like meta and it's not as good, like people will perceive a deck as like, oh, that's really, really, really good. And they just do it like the whole game. They don't think about like, oh, this is really good, but it's like, this Rog Side deck is really good, but it's like they molded 2 and they have no cards that like, they're kind of out of the game right now. They've got no value pieces, like,
but he could have an ad dots. Fucking get him.
Yeah. And that's like, the kind of stuff that happens, literally. But then you'll look over here, and then it's like, here's this Zer player that's got like 10 cards in hand and 2 value pieces on the board, and he's like, I'd worry about the Rog Side.
Yeah. No, I think that happens quite a bit. Yeah. And maybe to kind of add on that, like too, is especially if you're going through and you're in a play group and you're either testing decks out or like you get multiple consecutive wins. Mm-hmm. I think that like if you're doing that, and there's nothing wrong with that, mm-hmm. winning or losing or having fun or sitting at a just kitchen table playing cEDH games. Mm-hmm. But I think what can happen too when you do that and you're doing that outside of a tournament setting, then that's whenever almost the more casual mindset kind of creeps into everyone's minds and goes, oh, he's won like 3 games already tonight. We can't let him win another one. Yeah. And that's something I think is, again, and I think that kind of goes back to like where we've kind of talked out off camera on like what is the main differences between like a casual like game and a cEDH game. Like for me, like even in that, like I always try to do like refresh the start as soon as that game's over and we go into the next one. Doesn't matter who the threat at the table was. Doesn't matter if Zer's won 20 games in a row. I'm gonna play it with that mindset of like, I'm really going to take my time and think, okay, what do I need to do? When do I need to interact? Who do I need to interact against? Yeah. And not just let the prior games or, what I think at the time mm-hmm. is the issue when I know that the main issue is sitting, in the next seat.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let that dictate how I interact in the game.
Well, I think that too, like, because I'm not going to lie to you, the other day, whenever I was politicking like really hard, and it obviously allowed me to win a game, which I was telling you about like on the start of the video. But Aaron immediately looked at me and he was like, "Okay, mini chase," and because like I was politicking like crazy, trying to turn him into like the issue, because he did. Don't get me wrong, I didn't know that I was going to be able to like win in that moment. Once I drew more cards and I had more resources, I was like, oh, I can win in that moment.
Yeah.
But I wasn't in a position. I can understand if I was in a position where like I'm, 5 extra cards compared to him, like in my hand compared to him, and I've got all these value pieces, all this crazy stuff going on here. But when it's like I'm pretty choked on mana anyway, and I don't look like I'm doing a whole lot, it's like, I can kind of be forgiven if like somebody was able to steer you towards this person that's got like a lot of resources in hand and they've got a big scary board. Like in that sense, it makes sense. I think it's when the threat assessment, like what you were talking about, like improper threat assessment, whenever it's like you literally have the person that has been in the driver's seat like pretty much this whole game. They've got they've got an Esper Sentinel, they've got a Ristic Study, or maybe they've got a Fish and a Ristic. They've got the Cannon on board. They've got, like you said, Basalt, and then they're just like
they've used Clever Impersonator to copy a Smothering Tithe, and
yes,
making treasures.
And then they're just like, yeah, no, I'm not the problem. It's that, and you look over and it's like the guy's got land and like Rog, and it's like, me, it's like I think of that SpongeBob episode where Patrick goes, "Who, me?" No, just silly, dude. I don't know. I do think that that's one thing though, just about playing locally with a lot of people regularly, is you develop a reputation, whereas in a tournament it really is like just a fresh thing, unless you're obviously like a very, very, very good player with a big name. Like people that are like huge in the space, like people like Ian, like Wounded Satellite, and these guys, like just people that have been playing for such a long time. They're like well known in that space.
Right.
People are going to know them, and like they're already going to have a little bit of a reputation. And people are going to want to be the guy or the girl that's like, yeah, I beat them. I managed to like get a win on them.
Yeah.
But in just like a normal tournament setting, like everybody just kind of looks at the commander and they try to do their best job of like threat assessing. Whereas like in the games that we play, it can be more of like a casual cEDH, which isn't necessarily wrong, but like I think cEDH could benefit a little bit from the casual setting, where in casual, I think it's very encouraged for people to sit down and talk about their intentions of what they want the game to be. I feel like we as cEDH players could do that a little more. Like, hey guys, like we're trying to get ready for tournament play and we want to really be good at that. So like, let's treat these games almost like tournaments. Like I'm okay if you take a little time to like, think through stuff, but like don't be slow playing. Like let's do a really good job of like threat assessment. Let's, make sure we're making good play, whatever it is. Or if it's like, hey, we're just sitting down and have fun and play some cEDH, then that's fine. You know what I mean? And like, even though you say like, hey, this is what we're wanting, like this is what we're hoping to get out of this game, people don't have to listen to that. I mean, like they have freedom to do whatever they want,
right.
But at least like the expectation is kind of there. And that way, if like you play a couple games and you're like, oh, okay, I'm not really liking this pod that I'm in, you can always go find another one, because you at least made the expectation known, and then it wasn't met, and then you have the opportunity to like go find something else, rather than being like, these fucking players, like they don't know what they're doing, and you walk off, when in reality, like maybe if you had just laid that expectation down,
right,
they'd have been like, oh yeah, we can do that, and then you'd have a better experience. So I think that's something we should all probably be a little better about, especially with our own pod.
Fair enough.
But
yeah, I think, with what you're saying there, as far as like just being able to be more open and communicating things, like I think that would probably help quite a bit. But even in tournament play, man, there was one game I can recall in particular through the decades, whenever like I was I think it was a top 8 game or something like that. And I may have talked about it before, but I was sitting seat 4, and I think that there was an Atraxa player in front of me, and I forgot what the other ones were playing. And I was playing Sisse, and I think I was attempting to resolve a turn 1 Smothering Tithe. And I had already mulliganed down to like 4 cards, and like 4 or 5 cards, something like that. I'm sitting seat 4, and the Atraxa player in front of me like proceeds to like force a will my smothering tithe. And I want to be, or I actually was like, I know that you're wanting to remove this. I know it's going to be something that gets out of hand, but look at the other board states, and I'm sitting seat 4 and I already had mulligan. He went on ahead and force willed it. And then the person next to him, I think on the next turn or on turn 3, went off. And then like later he came back to me. He was like, "Oh man, I'm sorry, dude. Like you're totally right. I shouldn't have done that." I was like, "I told you what was going to happen."
Yeah.
And it happened. But it happens even at that event. It happens even whenever you make the cuts and start trying to play for the wins there too.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what to do. I don't think there's any way of like fixing that. I think it just all comes down to like experience and continuing to play at a certain level, or trying to get yourself to play at a certain level, or just do coaching. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
But other than that, like that's one of my biggest things is like in the middle of a game is just making sure that everyone is like accurately assessing what all's happening, not just listening to the person that's at the main active threat and try to throw. And I'll do that sometimes. I'm not going to deny it. Like if I know I'm the threat at the table, I'm still going to try to like throw that attention to another player or things like that. That's just part of the game. But I'm also going to be okay if like I start getting targeted in that moment. Like I know I say quite a bit. Like sometimes I feel like I sit down at a table and I feel like I'm playing a 3v1, but if it happens, it happens. But outside of that, I just want the games to be good. And I feel like whenever players aren't actively like thinking about those things and trying to assess what's going on in the game, the quality of the game is not as good as what it could be.
Well, I'm not even gonna lie to you, man. Like, and I mean, we can leave this in or cut it. It's whatever you want to do. But like, that's one of the things that's really been getting me too. Is like, I feel like I enjoyed. I feel like I used to really enjoy like sitting down and playing a lot of like cEDH games and doing stuff. Like I'll sit down with some of these other people, and like I said, it's just a complete lack of like you said, like threat assessment and like understanding like what's going on at the table. And it's not even that I'm being improperly threat assessed. It's just that I try to do my best a lot of games just playing police at the table the best I can, because like I feel like that's the role that I almost have to take, or else someone just like immediately will run away with it. And so a lot of times in the games that I've been playing recently, it's like I don't even mold to like a value piece. I just hard draw it and then I cast it later. But I will literally keep like 3 pieces of interaction, or I'll keep like 2 pieces of interaction, like counterspell, a removal piece, maybe like a Dranith, or maybe I'll keep like 2 counters and like an Oppo or something, just something. And then I'm having to, like I said, play police. And then even with me trying to be that person to like make smart decisions on like what to stop and like how to address that stuff and just hopefully like be able to slowly bring myself ahead, I'm still having a hard time of like keeping up with everything, because of the fact that like people will just king make somebody, and I don't even know if they're intentionally doing it or what, but they're just like, boom, here you go. I tried to go for it,
right,
and like didn't get there. It's like, go ahead, player that already had 7 cards in hand, and I just fed them like 8 more. It's like, go ahead, you have 15 cards in hand, try to win, and then you're just like, fuck, I can't stop this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does kind of get a little bit like, I don't know. I feel like whenever I've been getting up from games here recently, even games that I'm winning, I know that sounds silly, but like even games that I'm winning, I'm not happy that I took that time to sit down and play those games, if that makes sense. And I know that sounds weird to say, but like I'm just not enjoying them like I used to, which sounds weird. And I won the game. Like I could literally win the game and be like,
right,
awesome. But then I'm like, that really didn't feel earned. Or like I didn't feel like I shouldn't have really won that game right then. Like I should have had to work for that more, or like this person probably shouldn't have like been allowed to just go off so early right now. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it, but it's just weird. Like the games that we played the other day where it was like the flubs and all the craziness, like those were really fun games. Like I actually like that. And it felt like everybody was doing the best they could to like stop wins. Like multiple people were getting stopped. We were trying to like find good opportunities to go for stuff. Like those were really fun. But sometimes I just sit down and I'm like, God, I wish I would have done something else with that 3 hours.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I think between like the 2 kind of pet peeves we've talked about, as far as like the not being aware of, the board presence, whether it's like feeding someone a bunch of additional resources through token, like treasures or card advantage or whatever it might be, or like the threat assessment stuff, like when those two things kind of go by the wayside, it doesn't make for the quality of the game like you're talking about there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I said that. But I'm sure there are a lot of other things that we are about to discuss that kind of do the same thing. So, like, what do you feel like you're next?
I will say, I think that one of the, I kind of brought it up, and I wanted to like at least pivot to it because I've got other things too. But like lying is one thing that just kills me, dude. I think that there's a difference between like being deceptive. Like you don't have to fully open up about something. Like I'm not telling you like show me your hand and like let me know everything that you got. But like if you say to somebody like, hey, are you like, again, like it'd be something as simple as like, are you going to feed that Ristic study? It's like, I will not feed that Ristic if you will not feed that Ristic. And then they go, no, I will not feed the Ristic. And I'm like, fantastic. And then or I'm not going to feed the Mystic Remora. Fantastic. I will not feed it either. And then I will play a land. Maybe I cast I cast a creature or I do something, whatever. And then it's like, go ahead. And then they proceed to like just straight out lie and they feed the fuck out of it. And I'm just like, why do that? Because like it's you didn't just lie for that one game. Now you are perceived as a liar. And like I even remember Play to Win talking about that in a video where it's like you can get away with lying like one time probably, but then everybody's going to be like, this guy lies.
Yeah.
And like he even said, like if I sat down at a table with somebody and they lied to me, the next time I sit down in like a tournament setting or I play with them, and I'm gonna literally let everybody be like, hey guys, like just so you're aware, like this person tends to lie about stuff. Like, you know what I mean? So like if they're telling you they're not going to pop off or they're saying like they're not going to, they're probably going to. So like I would just be aware of that. And you don't have to say it in a way of be like, you lying son of a, like you just be like, look, this person has a tendency to lie.
Yeah.
Just want to give you a heads up. And then when they start to like try and politic and stuff, it's like I feel like it makes it harder for you in the long run.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, you just kind of create that reputation for yourself.
Yeah.
And obviously like in the casual games or like at a tournament setting, like it's a lot more inconsequential to do that. But if you are going to a tournament or you're playing in an event and you know that and you sit down at the table and and you're open about, hey, this is the history with this person, like they're probably gonna get pissed, but they bring it upon themselves first and foremost.
Yeah.
But it kind of, in a way, that kind of sways things. And I just kind of talked about the quality of the games where now everyone is looking at that person because of their own doing.
Yeah.
But now it's going to sway the game in a way where it's like you kind of have more of a 3v1 now at this point because this person chooses to behave or act this way in the game. And something that I was thinking about when you were talking about that too, and I'm drawing a blank on it because it's kind of, I was almost about to kind of bridge the gap in what I had just talked about as far as the threat assessment type things, but I don't remember off the top of my head. But no, I think that I think what you're saying, like it makes sense. Like obviously, like it can be a skill. Ish. I view politicking as a skill.
Oh, for sure.
In our game. But I think that this is what I was gonna say. Yeah, I remember now. Because what I think a big issue with it, and going back to the idea of the quality of the games and then like threat assessment and things like that, I feel like every time I sit on a table and that happens, my ideology on the game just goes out the window. I'm making spite plays. And, you lied about this or you lied about this and you're targeting something that I'm going to do. Well, now I'm going to sit here and I'm going to focus my resources against you. Yeah. I'm not worried about the other two players at that point. And I don't want to get myself in a mindset of doing that, but that's what I tend to gravitate to. Yeah. It's like, oh, well, here you go. You're going to get what you deserve in this game. And if you're sitting down at a competitive table and you're playing an event, you cannot play that way.
No.
Because that is another example of how it kind of leads into kingmaking at that point.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And honestly, like, it's just, I don't even know how to explain. Like, I think that there is a difference between, like, obviously, like, people will look at politicking sometimes as, like, lying. But, like, you're not necessarily lying. You are, like, again, like I've said, you don't have to divulge all of the information. Like, I remember I was playing, literally the other day, I was playing a game and I cast a Ranger Captain of Eos and somebody said, do you win here? And I was like, no. And I was being honest. Like, I was like, no, I do not win here. And they were like, show me your hand. I was like, I do not wish to show you my hand. Like, I'm just going to say that. And I was like, I don't want to show you my hand. I was like, but I do not win here. And I'll be honest with you. And somebody asked me, they were like, they looked at my board and they saw I had 3 mana open. And they were like, Thassa Consult? And I was like, I do not have Thassa Consult. And they were like, okay. And then they didn't end up countering the Ranger Captain of Eos. And I was like, okay, pass. It got back to my turn. I obviously cracked the Ranger Captain. And I did have Thassa and Tainted Pact. But I didn't have enough mana. I did, but I didn't lie. And
you didn't lie whatsoever.
Point in that did I lie. I was like, I don't want to show you my hand because clearly, like, I do have a win. It's just not right now. I don't have the mana to do this right now.
Yeah.
And I was not deceptive. I do not have Thassa Consult. I do have Thassa, but you didn't ask me, do I have Thassa? I would have gladly admitted, if you said, do you have Thassa? I'd be like, I don't wish to divulge that. Or maybe I'd like joke about it. But I'd be like, maybe. But I didn't have the other piece. And that kind of stuff to me is like, I think that that's fine. You're not lying. You're being honest.
Yeah.
Now, people can be like, well, you kind of lied. And it's like, you can look at that how you want to. But I think if it was just like, if I cast the Ranger Captain and they go, do you win here? And I go, no. And then I crack the Ranger Captain after it resolves and I win. I'm like, you're okay. I'm never going to let that happen again.
Right.
We're going to make sure to like, if I see a Ranger Captain come down, you crack it, I'm silencing you like every time. Like, or you know, if I see that, like, I'm always going to counter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if like, you know what I mean? Like, though in those instances, it's like you create a name and reputation for yourself that's like just not good. And those games always leave me feeling weird because I don't know. It's like you are mad, but like I think it's dumb to get mad at a card game. I think that's so silly. Because like I'm being serious. I know it sounds so dumb, but like, dude, I know this sounds dumb because I know that there's times where people have played with me and they've gotten mad at me. And it's like, I've always said, like, we're grown human beings, like grown adults, like men, women, whatever. Like, if we have issues, we can use our words. We can talk. If you've got a problem with something I did, I'm 100% open to hearing somebody out. It may not change the way that I think about it, but I'm 100% okay with hearing you out. But like when people get mad or like they get like that tendency to like want to look at you and like you start to get like raise their voice or whatever, I'm like, listen, either try to kick my ass right now or calm down and let's talk. Like pick one or the other. Don't escalate unless you're willing to go all the way, or just let's calm down and we can talk about it. But it's like, you know what I mean? It's a card game. And so I try not to get that way. Like sometimes I'll be like, hey guys, thank you for the game. And I wasn't really happy about the way that went down. And I'll just get up and I'll walk away. Because it's like, there's no point in like getting mad and be like, you lying, you know, piece of crap and like this and just start yelling. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, cool. I just think I'm done for the day. And I'll just get up and I'll walk off. And then the next time that person asks me to play a game, I'll be like, I don't think I'm in the mood to play today.
Fuck you, buddy.
Yeah. But I don't know. But that is something that does bug me. And I feel like you obviously, I don't think you see it a ton in cEDH. And that's why I think it bothers me when it does happen, because like it's not common for people to do that. So then when it does happen, you're like, that's pretty shitty of you to do. Like, you know what I mean? But again, everybody has their different like prerogative perspective on that kind of stuff. But you have anything else to
on that? Like, I even had a game the other day where I was playing Kennen and I slammed a volatile Storm Breakdown, and there's a bunch of targets I could have picked up. And I was playing against Plagon, Tyam, and Rogthras. And Rogthras had a Kennen out. I didn't have my Kennen, so I mean I could have stolen it. And someone in the game asked me like, "What are your plans on doing with that?" And my response, and I this is something I've gone to here recently, kind of along the same lines of what you're saying, but my response is, I'm choosing not to reveal that information. And then I just let them make a decision if they're going to let it resolve or if they're going to counter it, do whatever they want to. I feel like whenever I say that, one, I'm not lying, and two, there's no hard feelings. Like if I don't have anything to back it up, it's whatever, because that person probably they're probably looking at my board because it gives them the better advantage if they take this piece from me. So I need to do something about it now before I just let that happen. You know, and even after that game happened, I think they went back and it's just like, I should have countered that because I did end up taking something from their board. But I'm not going to reveal that, and I'm not necessarily saying, oh yeah, I'm not going to steal your shit and then fucking jack it, like, like, you know, it. And in that moment, it's like, you know, and again, I think that goes back to the threat assessment type stuff of like, you got to be aware of really what's going on. And like in that instance, I think that they really knew what was about to happen, but because I didn't choose to reveal one way or another, and nor did I lie about it, they kind of backed themselves out of like going for the counter or things like that. So use your words, be honest, and like I even feel like, I don't know, you could tell me if I'm wrong on that or not. You all could tell me if I'm wrong on that or not.
Please tell us. No,
but
comment on our videos.
Tell us about how Trouble in Pairs is such a good card.
Hey, I will say one of our last videos got a shit ton of comments, and we appreciate the hate.
Yeah.
No.
but no, like I think that that's not really even lying. You're not divulging like information like you were talking about. Now I will share information if I feel like it's relevant to the game and I know like where the threat is and things. Even if I know I'm the threat, I might reveal at times just to stop certain things. But yeah, don't lie.
No. Well, I don't know. I just don't think that there's a place for lying at the table.
Yeah.
I think that one is one that like really gets me for some reason. But sorry, that probably went on for too long, and I'm sure I'll cut a lot of that. And it'll be much more concise. I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Yeah. What about you? Any other pet peeves?
Okay, there have been a lot of times I've sat at a table and I've played the game, and I know what I'm trying to do, and I know what the deck is trying to do. Okay. But then maybe someone playing their own deck doesn't really know what they are doing.
Yeah.
And me in the mindset of I'm trying to play this really competitively because I want to keep myself in that mindset. Whenever either people in the game start saying what the win is and how to go for it, or someone from the outside of the game comes to the table, looks, and is just like, they just got to do this, or actively tell the person what it is they need to do to win right there, nothing makes me want to flip a fucking table more.
So you're saying, I don't even want to interrupt that. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is if someone is either not sure what their win is and everyone else starts saying what it is they need to do and tells them how to play that deck and things like that, I cannot stand that shit.
Yeah.
That might be the biggest thing above threat assessment is if other players are actively telling the person in the winning seat how to play their deck because they don't know how to play it, or someone like even in a casual game in our locals, if someone comes up and they're just like, oh yeah, all you have to do is this, and then just here, let me see it, let me cast the spells for you, let me play the deck here, you do this and you win. I don't know how many times I've seen that, and I hate it every single time. It makes me want to just throw somebody, and that's the one that gets me. Yep, there it is.
Yeah, I think that there's a time where like if somebody's new, and especially if you're a bunch of like really good buddies sitting at a table, because I have done that before where I've like watched somebody through a win because it's literally like the first time they've ever sat down with the deck. They're brand new. We're all just friends at the table, and they're like, "How does this deck work?" And you'll show them the cards in the deck to win, and then they're like trying to piece this thing together. And I'll even ask the rest of the players, I'll be like, is it okay if I help them here?
Yeah.
And they'll normally be like, yeah, that's fine, sure. And then you'll kind of like walk them through it. And I've done this in the past where like I basically just like taking the cards and started doing it. And I'm like, no, that's not going to teach anybody. So now I'm like, what do you think you should do? And I'll just kind of like ask them, like, probe the question. It's like, you probably know what you should do. What should you do? And they go, I think I need to cast this. And I'm like, okay, good. What next? And they're like, And then they'll be like, maybe this. And I'll be like, good. What next? And I think that stuff's okay. Or if they're like, well, I think I should do this. And it's like, well, okay, look, this is really what you should do. And again, like if you're a group of friends and everything's good, then yeah. But when it's just an outsider and like the person's been playing the deck for a while and they still don't even understand what the hell's going on, it's like, oh my God, dude.
And they don't learn from it. Like
a
player doesn't learn from it. Like there have been times whenever I've sat in an event or tournament setting, and someone basically goes like, "I have all the pieces, like, are good to call it here," and I literally have to just be like, play it through. Like if I've gone through the game and I feel like that person really knows what they're doing with the deck, I'm okay to call it on the spot. Like, you have interaction, I don't have anything. Let's go. Let's report. Let's do whatever we need to, because like we've either sat down or you've gone through your actions long enough. Like I can tell what you're doing. But then I've also been on the other end of that where someone just even if they played the deck for a while and they didn't know what they were doing with it, and they're just like, good to call it. I'm like, play it out, because there's a chance they don't actually know how to play out that line, or they fuck it up.
Yeah.
And you keep the game going.
Yeah. That actually happened in like a big tournament one time where I think this was back whenever like the Flash stuff was really, really big. And I don't know if it was cEDH necessarily, but I think it may have been like a 1v1 tournament. But it was in, or it may not even, I don't even remember if it was necessarily like, it was the Flash meta type thing. But I remember like why I always draw a fucking name on that. I always draw a blank on that damn card. The one that you cast with Flash and then it dies.
Protean Hulk.
Thank you. Yeah, they would. There was a loop that you would do with the Hulk, and then it would end up like winning you the game. And I think it was a 1v1 format. But yeah, the guy literally, they were in a like high level tournament. It was a championship, and the guy literally got there, and he was like, "I've got the combo. Like, are you good to call it?" And the guy was like, "No, I want to see you like do it." And the guy fucked up the line, like in a championship of a 1v1 tournament, messed it up. And was like, oh, and couldn't get there. And then the dude got to his turn and he did the line properly and won. And it was like, that can happen. And I think that stuff matters. But yeah, once you've played the deck a lot, you should start to get a grasp on like what your cards do. And I feel like this is I don't want to change the subject yet. And I have another thing that I kind of want to pivot this into, but I don't necessarily want to change it yet.
Yeah.
Because I want you to like have your opportunity to talk about this if you need to talk about it more.
No, I mean, I think I'm good. That would like literally, I got heated just even thinking about it.
So. No, and I 100% agree with you. I think that the reason that this happens, and this is something that I kind of like think is stupid. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking inspiration from other people's decks. I don't think there's anything wrong from looking at a deck, and if you understand the deck, you just fucking rip it right off the internet, and you're like, I'm playing Ian's list, or I'm playing Dylan and Cam's list. I want to play Dylan's Timnatana Blood Pod list. I want to play that deck. And you get it and you proxy it off and you're like, that's the deck I play. The way that I came to the conclusion of what Xur deck I wanted to play was because I was in the Discord and there were 3 different lists that were doing really good. There was one that was like the list that I play. It was the Touristics. There was a like Reanimator Xur list, and then there was like an Infinite Mana list. And I was like, okay, I'm going to proxy off all 3, and I'm going to play all 3, and I'm going to see which one I like. And I played the Infinite Mana one, and I thought it was cool, but it just wasn't my jam. I played the Reanimator one, and I thought that it was really, really fun. And I played the Touristics one, and I was like kind of torn between these two. And eventually, I mean, you saw, I bought cards specifically for this version, and like all in Necro early. And I eventually was like, I don't think that's what I want to be doing. Then I said, this is the one I'm going to settle on. And then I started buying all the cards for that list. And I was like, okay, cool. And I just started buying stuff. And I was like, that's the version I'm playing. And I love it. And it's okay to do stuff like that and like net deck a deck. But when you net deck a deck and then you don't know how the fucking deck works, take the time to sit down and say, hey, I need to see what this deck does, and I need to make sure that I understand what's in it. Because it's crazy how many people will find a list, print the damn list off, and be like, yeah, I'm playing this deck now. Like I'm playing Kennen, or I'm playing whatever. And then they have no idea why some of the choices are in there. They don't even get why the list is together.
Right. When you started talking about that and like going through, whenever you're getting through your different versions of the deck, I couldn't help but think about the time we were at Hobby and we were making cuts to your deck, and what was it? The Lava Spur boots? Some shit like that. I can't help but think about that. I don't even remember what I said.
That shit was so good because I was trying to figure out what I needed to be doing, and I said I really don't want to play dead cards. And then I had Swift boots or whatever, or Lightning Greaves, Lightning Greaves, and I had the Lava Spur boots because they both give Xur haste. And I was like, I think I like these cards. Like I think that they'd be good. Like, what do you think? And you're like, well, what do they do if your commander's not out? And I go, shit. And I'm like, and that literally, but that's the kind of stuff that was like, oh damn. And yeah, I don't know. I think that there is something to be said about understanding what your deck does. Like if somebody picked up Flubs right now and they didn't know what that deck did, oh my God, I would get up immediately because I'd be like, there's no way I'm sitting through this. Or like Karkashima, like Kark Sakashima,
Oh, yeah.
or even like Tyler. He just won a tournament with like Timna Kark. And I mean, like, I think Mardu's cool. If you don't know how that deck works, he knows how that deck works. He's a very good player.
Right.
He literally said that his turns can take 45 minutes sometimes. Like in the tournament that they were playing in, he literally had a turn that was 45 minutes.
Jesus
and he got to a
Christ.
win, but it's non-deterministic. And so it took 45 minutes. There was a game in that tournament that literally lasted 3 hours and 56 minutes. Or not turn. There was a game that lasted that long. They didn't get done until 2:30 in the morning.
That's awful.
Yes. But that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Like, he knows how the deck works, and it can take a long time. If you don't know what your deck does, that turn is going to last until, like, the heat death of the universe. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So, like, just fucking learn your deck. Like, that's probably what the pet peeve is. It's like, I don't care if you net deck. I don't care if you do anything. Just learn the deck.
I was about to say, because you started that with, like, there's two different things here, and you went really heavy into this one, and then did we even get to the second one?
Maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's just, oh, no. That was what I was going to do. It was like, it wasn't two things. It was just like, I had two trains of thought.
Gotcha.
But yeah, but I think we wrapped them around, so that's fine. They you know what I mean? Ooh, no, I'm just kidding. That's some cringy shit. No. But yeah, I think that I just think that's the biggest thing is just understand what your deck does. Like, learn your deck so that you can be as efficient as you can. You know what I mean? But yeah, sorry.
Sorry for what?
Huh?
Sorry for what?
Well, I felt like I interrupted you, but I don't know. Yeah, you're right. You asked me a question. What the fuck am I? I'm not sorry. No,
Don't you apologize, damn it.
Yes, sir.
They bring you back.
Yeah, yes. I'm back. Yeah.
No, but yeah, I think, just as much as you brought up, like, not like someone like sitting down and like not knowing how to play the deck, even if they've played it for a while. And then my point of like people just like interjecting and teaching the person how to do it on the spot, like, know what you're doing, because it makes the game smoother. It makes it way more competitive. Like we've been talking about throughout this, and even at the casual table, I feel like if even if you are trying to build a bracket one as low power as you can, like almost trying to make it even a 0, like at least know what you're trying to do with it. Have an idea. Don't let the other players in the game, be the ones to tell you, oh, this is how you do it. And then basically then play it out for you. Because I don't even think at a casual table anyone wants to sit down and do that.
No. And I think that obviously, like when you're new to the deck, that's fine. That is the time where you're learning.
Yeah.
That stuff's fine. But when you've been showing up with the same deck for forever, eventually, like, you gotta quit having your hand held. Like, you gotta know what you're doing. Like, look through the list or something. I don't even know. Just know what it does. But yeah. Or just be like Chase and play every deck and know what every deck does.
I have a habit of doing that, don't I?
That's probably what makes you such a good player, is because you're like, well, I know what Blue Form wants. I know what Sisay wants. I know what TNT wants. And then I know what Flub wants.
Dude, no. But even for me in that, like, I do want to know what each of them do. That's why I've built Blue Farm, TNT, Sisay, Rogsai, Kennen, Flubs. Even though it's never going to make top 10 cut, I still want to stick by my word, what I said at the beginning of the year and of the podcast. I do want to take Flubs to a tournament and actually play it. Oh, yeah. I would love to go to that Only Flubs event, and I hope that we're able to talk about that at some point. But other decks that I've been looking at, like I want to put Derevi together. I don't think I'd ever put Magda together, but I do really want to understand that deck a lot more because it kind of confuses me. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. And plus, we're in spoiler season right now too, and we're about to see a whole lot new cards, and there might be some new things coming out. We'll see. Yeah. Tarkir looks pretty interesting, so hopefully within the next week or so, we're going to be able to talk about that one a little bit more too, and get some content for that. But I think as far as like any kind of pet peeves, I can't.
I was gonna say I've given 3, so you've given 2 if you want to round out.
Have I given? Okay. Did you give 3?
Yeah.
I think you kind of branched and stole mine.
No, well, kind of. Do you want me to give another one?
No.
Do you really want this video to be 8 hours long? No, I'm just
We just talked about taking too long of a turn. We're going to make it too long of a video now. I'm trying to think if there's like another one that I think, just as much as you talked about lying earlier, I think that having too much arrogance and like narcissism when you sit down at the table is a big thing for me as well, because I've played in even we kind of briefly at the beginning of the year talked about our experience through the decades in December, and there was a game where dude was in the driver's seat the whole time, was doing the things, and then like literally it got back around to me. I had a Cutzel on board because I was playing Sisse. Or no, I was playing TNT. And I overloaded Cycrift on my turn because I had the silence effect. The Dahada player, before the Master of Keys player went out, was able to like reanimate, or like, no, it wasn't reanimate. I think it was a necromancy targeting the Master of Keys, Abdel Adrian, and made infinite tokens, and then passed before the Master Keys player died to his own Pact of Negation trigger. And then the Nagila player, he was like, oh, well, I can't win through that. And I showed him I had the Psych Rift, and I was like, do you want to draw? Because that's what the Master Keys player was trying to do. But the whole time he's just like, no, I think I got more turns. I think I'm going to be fine. And then on my turn, I overload Psych Rift. The Dahada player was completely out at that point. He had like one land and like a rock the whole game. Nagila couldn't do anything. I proceeded to, on his upkeep, silence him. And then going into my next turn, I placed a Ranger Captain down. Passed the turn, got back to his turn again. I sacked the Ranger Captain, and I still had a silence effect on my own board state. So I like time walked him and like for like 2 turns in a row, and just I built up a big enough board they couldn't do anything at that point. But like the whole game, it was a lot of like, no, I think I got this. No, I'm not gonna take a draw. Nah, no, and like very thinking like just super highly of himself. And then when that game was over, he proceeded to drop. So, that, and the Master Keys player, like later on, was just like, you should have told that little bitch. And, like he was so bad. But like, it was a funny moment. But like, don't do that. Like, even if I'm sitting at the table and like I'm looking at my hand, I'm looking at my board, I'm like, okay, I could probably win on my next turn or a couple turns or things like that. I'm not going to just act like I'm the fucking shit and just you might as well fucking scoop now because I got this. Here, let me just whip it out there and there you go. Let's go to the next game. No, there's no sense of that. And it goes back to what you were saying. Like, you build a reputation for yourself whenever you do that. And it makes it where people don't want to play with you. Or, or you get like a super bruised ego about it whenever you do lose. And it doesn't create a good experience for the pod, and it doesn't create a good experience for not just that pod or the people you choose to play with. It's everyone that's involved with it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the biggest thing with that is like just being open-minded to like, it doesn't matter who you're playing with, you can still learn stuff from those people, and there's ways to like, it does you no good to shut off the other 3 players, like shut them out, because like politicking is such a huge piece. Like, you want to make sure that you're like finding ways to use them to your advantage too, and just being the dick at the table is not going to make that happen. But I just think that that's a huge thing. Like, not like, again, checking your ego before you start. Like, don't go into a game thinking I'm king shit and I'm gonna, I'm about to wipe the floor with all these people because nobody's better than me. They fucking suck. I don't play with anybody that's a shit player. Like, none of that. Like, just go into the game with like, you know what? Like, you can think that to yourself. You can be like, I think I'm probably one of the better players at this table, but I still need to like be smart, make good decisions. You can think that shit. Just don't openly sit there and say it to everybody and be like, hey, by the way, I just want everybody to know I'm way fucking better than y'all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That does not do you any good.
Right.
You just immediately have shut off everybody at the table, and also everybody's gonna be like, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I just think that you can learn a lot from everybody. And I think that it's important to remember that. Like, you know, if somebody sees something that maybe you don't, like, you know, just anything. Like maybe somebody has played your deck before and they were like, hey, I used to play this piece. You can think that that's stupid as fuck. You can be like, I would never play that card. But it's okay to look at the person and be like, hey, thank you for that piece of information. Because guess what? One day they may walk up to you and they go, hey, I was playing that deck and I used to play this piece. And you're like, how the fuck did I not think of that? You never know when that day is going to happen. So just like, always be open-minded. Be willing to learn from people. Like in everything you do, not just here. Be willing to change your opinion. Like, it blows my mind how fucking hateful some of the people are on the damn comment section. Like, they fucking have people going back and forth on each other. And it's like, I try to be as cordial as I can in that shit. I'm like, you know, I try to be until somebody's a dick. And then I'm like, I'm not taking that. But, you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, go fuck yourself. You know, like, whatever. But seriously, it blows my mind how, like, closed-minded people are to that. And, like, how hateful they can get when it's a fucking card game. Like, at the end of the day, we're shuffling up with really expensive pieces of cardboard, and we're all just trying to prove that we're the biggest swinging dick at the table.
Hell so, like, yeah.
Just,
that's the best part of the game, buddy.
Exactly. So I don't know. I don't know. It's like, if you're going to be, if I'm trying to think of how to even say this. If you're a bigger ass, if you're a bigger ass than Flubs is, you need to address yourself, because Flubs has a big old ass.
He's a thick boy.
He's 0'5". He's a big boy.
Yeah.
So don't do that. Let Flubs be Flubs.
Yeah. Oh, we definitely got to talk about Flubs at some point. But you know, I think that even, and I don't really have any other pet peeves other than that. Do you have anything else?
Yeah. I think my biggest pet peeve is when people don't like and subscribe. No.
Oh. There's like 80-something% of people that have viewed our videos and not subscribed yet. So
yeah.
So
please.
That's for the Patreon content.
Yeah.
But you know, other than that, like, I think a lot of what we did talk about today, even though it's pet peeves whenever we are sitting down at cEDH table, like we brought up some points too on you know, just the difference in the mindset between the casual side of things and the cEDH mindset and the really like competitive, like, and I think it's really important to recognize that. I've even seen like a video. I watched a video today. I forgot what channel it was on, but they were talking about how there was a bracket 3 tournament whenever the bracket 3 was not designed to have a competitive scene. And it's like, you could take that and go, yeah, you could think that, but there's going to be people out there that want to test the boundaries and push things because they do want to play competitively. And now there's new brackets or a new system in order to do that at this level. I know, like, when we talked about the brackets a few weeks ago, that's one of the things that interested me, of like, okay, what kind of meta do we have in these lower tiers now? And like 3 to 4, or how are they going to change things here in the next few weeks? Because we'll hear an announcement, hopefully, on what they're planning on doing or what changes they're planning on implementing, things like that. I want to see tournaments based around that, but it does come down to, what do people think of when they play Commander at the casual level, and what do they think when they play the actual cEDH? Mm-hmm. And so I know we kind of talked about this a little bit off camera too, but you know, over these next few weeks or every so often, kind of talking and implementing that little series of like, you know, what is the difference there? Not just from the psychological perspective of things, or what you're trying to do in the games or things like that, but breaking down each little like aspect between like mulligans, play patterns, things like that. And so, you know, I think that would be a good thing, like, especially, you know, these next few weeks, you know, when we sit down and record, that's probably going to be something that we begin to talk about as well.
Yeah, no, and I think that's good. And honestly, it's funny because like it has been popping up a little bit more. I've noticed people, with all the changes happening, people trying to find that fine line and that delineation of like, what is the difference between each of these things. So I think that it would be good to like help draw that line a little bit clearer and like show the distinction, because I didn't start in cEDH. I started casually and I kind of worked my way over here, and I made that descent very gradually. So I've started in the, we looked through a box of bulk and threw together a cEDH, or not cEDH deck, threw together a commander deck, all the way up to I've spent plenty of time thinking, testing, researching, like messing with my deck, and now I've got a deck that I enjoy. I've went through that whole spectrum, and I feel like we know a lot of people that have done that, and so I think that there is a way to like clearly delineate where, based off of your intentions and what you want, like where you should fall in that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But no, I think that would be something good for people, and I feel like that's a huge thing that I feel like that's one of the biggest misconceptions that this format has, is just naturally because it's a game, people want to win, but it's weird because like when you think of it from the casual lens, it's like some people will be like, well, my intention's not to win. And it's like, well, if everybody else's intentions are to win, but yours isn't, then like,
what are you trying to do?
Yeah, what happens if you don't win? Do you get upset if you don't win?
Do you get upset if you do win?
Yeah, like I'm confused. So, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, and it's just it leaves things very murky. And I do think that that's the one thing that I love so much about cEDH, is that we all just go into the game with the expectation that it's like, I may not win this one, but I'm damn sure going to try. Yeah. And so I think that it would be good to like help differentiate the mindset and everything of the two, and like how each part of the game, like you said, each piece of the game gets affected based off of your mindset and like how you should go about it moving forward. But
yeah. And I know we kind of segued into that like right at the tail end of it, but let us know what you want to see in that regard. Like, is it going to be talking about just politicking or deck construction or even mulligans? Because I think that there's a clear mindset and distinction even within that aspect between the two there of casual, like 1 through 3 brackets to the 4 and 5 into things. And then kind of going back to what we talked about today, let us know your pet peeves. Let us know what you think of our takes on things like that. And other than that, I don't think we have anything else. Do you have anything that you want to? All right. Well, as always, thank you for watching. Please, if you like our content, like and subscribe. And always, as always, I fucked that one up. Let me try that one again. Yeah. And as always,
go play some cEDH.